open the fridge, you stare at it for a few seconds, not really hungry, just looking. You grab something easy, something similar, something you have eaten 100 times before. You assume your ancestor did something similar, just simpler, but the real answer is far stranger. There was no single ancient diet, there was no one meal plan your body was built for. What your ancestors actually ate depended on where they stood, what season it was, and what the ground happened to offer that week. Sound chaotic? It was. And that chaos might explain more about your body than any modern diet plan ever could. Start with the image most people carry around without question: a caveman with a spear dragging home a mammoth leg, feeding the tribe with meat. It's dramatic, it's cinematic, it's also mostly wrong. Frank Marlowe, an anthropologist who spent years living alongside the Hadza, one of the last hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, tracked exactly what they ate day after day, season after season. The numbers surprised almost everyone. Hunts failed constantly, men came home empty-handed more often than not. Some studies of Hadza hunting success put it at roughly one successful big game hunt for every 3 or 4 attempts, sometimes worse depending on the season. Meat was a celebration, not a guarantee. So, who was actually feeding the group most days? The women, gathering tubers, berries, baobab fruit, and dense, starchy roots dug straight out of the ground with simple sticks, day in, day out, with far more consistency than hunting ever provided. The mammoth leg fantasy left out the people, quietly keeping everyone alive. This single fact reframes almost everything you think you know about ancient eating. It wasn't a high protein feast every night, it was mostly plants, fruits, leaves, whatever was abundant, wherever your group happened to be standing. And that's the next piece that breaks the myth completely. There was no universal ancient diet because there was no universal ancient environment. A group near a coastline ate differently than a group in a dense forest. A group in open savanna ate differently than a group near wetlands. Shellfish here, tubers there, insects somewhere else entirely. And not as some desperate last resort. Insects were a real, reliable, protein dense food source across huge stretches of human history, eaten deliberately, not accidentally. Does that change how natural your own cravings start to feel? Here's where the story gets genuinely strange. So, because eating the food wasn't the part that changed everything, preparing it was. Richard Wrangham, a biological anthropologist, built an entire theory around the single insight. Cooking didn't just make food taste better, it made food give you more energy, dramatically more. For the exact same ingredients, cooked starches and cooked meat are far easier for your gut to break down than raw versions of the same food. Less digestive effort, more usable calories. Wrangham's cooking hypothesis argues that this single shift, learning to control fire and apply it to food, may have allowed the human gut to shrink while the human brain grew. Because a smaller gut burns dramatically less energy, freeing up fuel for the most expensive organ in your body. Your brain right now reading this sentence is running partly because some ancestor figured out that fire plus root vegetable equals more energy than root vegetable alone. That's not a minor detail. That might be one of the most important discoveries your species ever stumbled into. Now layer in another piece of the puzzle. Catherine Milton, a researcher who studied the diets of wild primates compared to early humans, found something equally strange. Most primates spend the overwhelming majority of their day just chewing tough leaves, raw fibrous plants, hours and hours every single day, just to extract enough calories to survive. Humans don't do that. Humans figured out a workaround. Cooking was part of it. So was tool use, grinding, pounding, and processing food before it even touched your mouth. Your ancestors weren't eating natural food the way modern marketing likes to imagine it. Some pure, untouched raw ingredient straight from the earth. They were constantly engineering their food to extract more from it, smashing it, heating it, soaking it, fermenting it. In some regions, long before anyone understood the chemistry behind why that worked. So, if there's one thing your ancestors were doing instinctively, it wasn't eating clean, it was eating efficiently. This is where the counterintuitive twist lands hardest. The modern idea of an ancestral diet almost always picture meat as the centerpiece, plants as the side dish, and processed food as the villain. Reality flips that picture upside down in nearly every direction. Plants were usually the centerpiece, meat was inconsistent, often rare and treated as a high value, high effort bonus. And processing, smashing, cooking, grinding wasn't the enemy. It was one of the smartest survival tools your species ever developed. There is another detail that rarely makes it into the popular version of this story: honey. In Hadza communities, honey isn't a minor treat. It's one of the most prized calorie dense foods available. Sought out aggressively, sometimes risking stings and falls from tall trees to get it. Sugar wasn't some modern invention waiting to corrupt an otherwise pure ancestral diet. The drive towards sweet, energy dense food is ancient. It's wired in. Its long predates supermarkets, vending machines, and gas station candy aisles. Does that craving for something sweet at the end of a long day feel a little less like a personal failure now? Put all of this together and a much messier, much more human picture emerges. Your ancestors were eating some perfectly optimized, biologically pure diet that modern food has corrupted. They were improvising constantly, eating whatever specific patch of land offered in a specific season, then using fire, tools, and effort to squeeze every available calorie out of it. Sometimes that meant feast, often it meant scarcity, always it meant adaptation. That single fact might be the most useful inheritance buried in this whole story. Not a fixed menu, not a rigid rule book, a flexible system built across millions of years designed to handle widely different food environments without falling apart. That flexibility is still running the show inside you right now, whether you notice it or not. The reason a sudden craving for something fatty, sweet, or salty can feel almost impossible to ignore isn't weakness. It's an Asian reward system still doing exactly what it evolved to do, pushing you toward calorie dense food in a world your body still partly expects to be unpredictable, even though your kitchen is three steps away and never actually runs out. The reason different cultures around the world eat such different normal food isn't randomness either. Fermented fish in one region, insects in another, dairy here, none there. It's the same ancient pattern, just running on modern ingredients, shaped by whatever happened to be locally abundant for generations before you were ever born. Your fridge isn't some sterile, modern departure from how humans are supposed to eat. It's just the newest version of the same ancient strategy. Take whatever's available, process it, extract as much value from it as possible, repeat. So the next time you open that fridge and stare at it without really thinking, remember what's actually happening underneath that. Pause. You're not failing some ancient ideal of how eating is supposed to look. You are running a system built by people who never knew what tomorrow's food source would be, who survived by staying flexible instead of pure, and who somehow turned that uncertainty into the very brain you are using to read this sentence right now. You open the fridge, you are not looking for the past, you are living in it.